All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, second video of the year. Properties of numbers, lesson 1.3. Please make sure you guys have out your book, okay, your interactive notebook, and also your bell work. All right, so what we're going to do on this lesson, ladies and gentlemen, we covered this in class. Do the warm-up activities first, and then we'll go from there. So, you guys on your bell work, remember, even if you missed the day, I expect you to do the bell work. This is turned in and graded. Please fill out this. Please write down, you can put 2, 3, and 4. You don't necessarily have to write down the whole equation because I don't know what it is, but just make sure you guys do annotate that as lesson 1.3, and we'll go from there. All right, after you guys annotate that this is lesson 1.3, and then you've put down question 2, 3, or 4, okay, 2, let's give you the answers. All right, so here's question 2. I kind of did the chicken scratch for you. You add it up, multiply out together. So 15 plus 3 is 18. You can add those two together, you get 22. Add it together, you total get 14. Remember, what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, is PEMDAS, okay? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, adding, and subtracting, order of operations that you guys have been doing since elementary school. Now you're substituting in numbers, AC squared, 8B, AB. You plug all these in. So, 4 times 10 squared minus 8 times 5, which is B, and that's 4 times 5. Do the math out here. 10 squared is 100. Do the subtraction, division, 180. Number 4, plug in the same thing. 5 cubed is 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. Okay? So it'll come out to be 160. All right. Hopefully you guys got that. Today we're covering a couple mathematical practices, reasoning and constructing arguments. And if you want to know the standard we're covering, that is it. So you guys have been able to do order of operations for a long time. What I want to make sure you focus on now is recognizing properties of equality and understanding what commutative and associative properties are, because those two are big ones in algebra going forward. On page 16, you guys will start to have your vocabulary. If you guys turn to page 16, you'll see not only vocabulary, but huge charts, and that's what we're going to go over right now, okay? Understand these identities. Reflex property, basically saying if 5 is on one side equals 5 on the other. Symmetric property, basically saying that you can have 8 equals 2 plus 6. You can swap it to the same side. It doesn't matter what side, and it's the exact same thing. Transitive, substitution. We'll be doing a lot of substitution properties in math, okay? We just did it. Where if n equals 11, then you can plug in the n, you can plug in the 11, and then what do you get? Okay, you get 4 times 11. So simple stuff. We do substitution a lot in algebra. All right, additive inverse. Okay, one thing I want to make sure you guys understand with the additive inverse. These two, 3 minus 3 equals 0, and 3 plus negative 3 equals 0 are the same thing. When we start getting into moving variables with negative 3x. I put a little x there. I want to make sure you guys are, if you are struggling with this concept of what number is negative, you may need to write it like this, and I'm okay with that. All right? It's whatever works for you. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other. Whatever's easier, pick it and go with it. All right. Multiplication identity, property of 0, multiplying anything by 0 is 0. Multiplicative inverse is basically a reciprocal. So if I have a over b or 1/2 and I times it by 2 over 1 or 2, it's equal to 1, or it's right there. Okay? Simple properties. All right, so let's get started. Evaluate. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the properties to evaluate. Now, from a technical standpoint, if you guys look at your book on page 17, it gives you nice, beautiful examples, and it does the work for you, and it wants you to identify the properties. We are not going to be tested on, at least within our class, I'm not going to test on these properties, okay? I want to make sure you can do the order of operations, all right? I want to make sure you know what the commutative and associative properties are, but I'm not really too concerned about these other ones. But we'll go through it just so you guys can see and understand. 12 minus 8, let's work on that, is 4, all right? And then you would work on this first. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and then minus 2, and this would be 3 plus, and then this would be 1/4 times that, okay? Now you work, do the next step in PEMDAS, okay? What we all did here, ladies and gentlemen, is substitution, all right? So we did the substitution property. I'm just gonna write sub. If you wanna write out substitution, we can. We took 12 minus 8, we substituted with 4, because that's what that equals. This was substituted here, and now we're actually going to do it again. All right, the substitution property again here to make this 3 times 1 plus. All right, sorry, these equations are not lining up, but that's one equation going like that. Okay. Now the next step, ladies and gentlemen, would be to, of course, solve it simply. All right. So, oops, this is supposed to be 4. So 1/4 times 4 is what? 1 plus 3 equals 4. Okay. The properties involved here are the substitution as well. 3 minus 2, you're substituting into 1. Okay. And then the 1/4 times 4, you're actually doing the multiplication property, the inverse property, not the inverse, but the multiplicative identity property. Okay, where you're making sure that's what this is, multiplicative identity, 3 times 1. All right, whatever numbers times 1 is actually 3. So understand that property. But what it is, ladies and gentlemen, is just a fancy word that somebody with a higher degree said, hey, let's tag a word and identity to it. All right, your turn. Now I want you to see if you guys can do this. Now, don't really focus on this one so much, but just focus on 1A, okay? Go with what you've learned and go by the example in the book and see if you guys can label these out. All right, so what this is, ladies and gentlemen, is this first one here is substitution. All right, I'm not going to write it all the way out. Substitution property, because you're taking 4 times 2, multiplying it together, and you're substituting in 8. All right, and then what it does is they actually do they add them together. So it's additive inverse. Okay, additive inverse property. 8 minus 8 equals 0. And then the next property on here would be substitution, because 2 times 3, substituting it down, so substitution again. And then last, and surely but not least, 6 plus anything is an additive identity this time. Add identity. Okay, so if you guys struggle with that, let me know. We could talk about it in class. Remember, this is just kind of want you guys to understand. You're not going to be tested really on that to a certain extent, but this is what's important. Commutative property. All right, know that you can switch things around. 8 plus 4 equals 8 plus 4. 4 plus 8, 7 times 11 equals 11 times 7. Make sure that you understand it doesn't change, okay? Associative properties. Make sure for any numbers where A, B, and C that you can actually do associative properties where A plus B plus C is the same thing as A plus BC. And the same thing with the multiplication here. It doesn't matter the brackets. When we get later on in algebra, ladies and gentlemen, down the road, these properties will be used extensively, so I will test you on these and make sure you understand them. All right, so let's go real world here, okay? Magina made a list of trail links to find the total miles she rode. Find the total miles Magina rode her horse. All right, so what you would do is you would write this out. This is basically an addition property for you guys, all right? So what did Magina do? She rode. So she wants to know what 4.25 plus 6.5 plus 9 plus 7.75 equals. Now, this is when these properties come in handy, okay? What I mean by that is on the associative property. You see how they got the brackets around it? It's harder for you guys to understand to do, is it easy to add all of these together? Or would it be easier to separate them out? It's actually going to be easier for you to separate them out, okay? Use the associative property. What I mean by that is focus on this part first. So, what is 4 plus 6? It's 10. Plus these would be 10.75, right? Plus 9 plus 7 is what? 16? 16.75. You see how the associative property makes it easier to add? All right, and then the last piece here, you add these two together. So it'd be 10 plus 16 is 26, but the 7.5, so that'd be 27.5. So totally, she went 27.5 miles. But you see how when you use the associative property, it makes it easier to do. You group things together to add them up, and then it makes it easier to solve the equation. So ladies and gentlemen, on this one here, I want you to do it